What if the world you know today slowly stopped looking the same tomorrow? Not in a movie, but in real life. This is not a prediction for the distant future. It is already happening. Right now. Across oceans, forests, deserts, and skies. The Earth is changing, and it is changing faster than many realize. This is the story of climate change and its impact on global ecosystems. Ecosystems are the living networks that support all life, from the smallest insects to the largest whales, from deep rainforests to frozen polar regions. Everything is connected, but that connection is now under pressure. Temperatures are rising year after year. Ice is melting faster than it can form. Oceans are warming. Weather patterns are becoming unpredictable, and nature is struggling to keep balance. Scientists have been warning us for decades, yet the changes are now visible to the human eye. Forests are burning more frequently. Coral reefs are dying at alarming rates. Species are being forced to migrate or disappear. Some adapt, many cannot. And extinction is becoming more common. But how did we reach this point? What exactly is driving these global changes? The answer lies in greenhouse gases: carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide. These gases trap heat in the atmosphere, creating a warming effect on the planet. This is known as the greenhouse effect, a natural process that is now intensified by human activity. Burning fossil fuels, cutting down forests, industrial emissions, agriculture, and livestock production all contribute to rising emissions. And as emissions rise, so does the temperature. But temperature is just the beginning, because ecosystems react in complex ways. Ice melting in the Arctic affects sea levels worldwide. Rising seas threaten coastal habitats. Heat waves stress animals and plants beyond survival limits. Rainfall shifts disrupt entire food chains. And once stable environments become unstable, the balance of nature begins to shift, slowly at first, then suddenly, and in ways that are hard to reverse. But to truly understand the crisis, we need to go deeper, into forests, into oceans, into polar regions, and into the lives of the species most affected. Because every ecosystem tells a different story, a story of struggle, a story of adaptation, and a story of survival. Forest ecosystems are among the most vulnerable to climate change. They are often called the lungs of the Earth because they absorb carbon dioxide and release oxygen. But those lungs are now under stress. Rising temperatures are drying out forests faster than before. This makes them more prone to wildfires, fires that burn longer, hotter, and more destructively than in the past. Entire ecosystems can disappear in days. Trees that took decades to grow can be lost in hours. And when forests vanish, so do countless species. Animals lose their homes, birds lose nesting grounds, insects lose food sources. This creates a chain reaction across biodiversity. Some species attempt to migrate to cooler areas, but not all can move fast enough, especially those with limited habitats or specialized survival needs. Biodiversity is shrinking globally, and every loss weakens the ecosystem further. In tropical rainforests, rainfall patterns are changing. Some regions experience long droughts. Others face extreme flooding. Both conditions harm delicate plant life. Trees struggle to survive under stress, and weaker trees become more vulnerable to disease. Insects and pests are also expanding their range. Warmer climates allow them to survive in new regions. This introduces new threats to forests and disrupts long-established ecological balances. Meanwhile, deforestation continues alongside climate change. Human expansion reduces forest coverage every year. Agriculture replaces natural habitats. Cities expand into once green landscapes. And the loss of trees accelerates warming even more. Because fewer trees means less carbon absorption. It becomes a cycle that feeds itself. Wildlife is among the first to feel the impact. Polar bears struggle as ice habitats shrink. Elephants face droughts in African savannas. Birds change migration routes unpredictably. And marine life is also affected through temperature shifts. Coral reefs, often called underwater forests, are bleaching. They lose their color, their nutrients, and eventually their life. When reefs die, entire marine ecosystems collapse because thousands of species depend on them. Scientists call this biodiversity loss, but in reality, it is a disappearance of life itself. Every extinct species is a permanent loss, a missing piece in Earth's natural system. And once it is gone, it cannot return. Forests once felt endless. Now they are fragile. Wildlife once felt abundant. Now it is uncertain. And ecosystems once stable are now shifting rapidly. The question is no longer if change is happening, but how fast it is happening, and whether we can slow it down in time. Because the deeper we go, the clearer the crisis becomes. If forests are the lungs of the Earth, oceans are its heartbeat. They regulate temperature, they store carbon, and they sustain millions of species. But that heartbeat is changing. The oceans are warming steadily. Even small temperature shifts have massive effects underwater. Coral reefs are the first to suffer. Rising heat causes coral bleaching. Where vibrant colors once existed, now only white skeletons remain. Fish species that depend on reefs are disappearing, and marine food chains are breaking apart. Warmer waters also hold less oxygen, making survival harder for marine life. Fish migrate toward cooler regions, but ecosystems in those regions are not prepared. This creates imbalance across the oceans. Meanwhile, polar regions are warming even faster. Ice sheets in the Arctic and Antarctica are melting rapidly. Glaciers that formed over thousands of years are shrinking, and sea ice is disappearing season by season. This is not just a loss of ice, it is a loss of habitat. Species like polar bears depend on ice to hunt and survive. Seals rely on it for breeding, and entire Arctic food webs are collapsing. As ice melts, sea levels begin to rise. This rise may seem slow, but its impact is massive over time. Coastal ecosystems are the first to feel it. Mangroves are flooded, wetlands are shrinking, and saltwater is entering freshwater systems. This affects both wildlife and human communities. Islands face the risk of disappearing entirely. Coastal cities face increased flooding. Storm surges become more destructive, and hurricanes gain more energy from warmer oceans. Extreme weather is becoming more frequent and more unpredictable. Some regions experience intense droughts, while others face overwhelming rainfall. Ecosystems are not adapted to these rapid shifts, and adaptation takes time that nature may not have. Permafrost in polar regions is also melting, releasing trapped greenhouse gases, which further accelerates warming. A dangerous feedback loop begins. More warming leads to more melting leads to more warming. And the cycle continues. Scientists warn that tipping points are approaching, points beyond which change becomes irreversible. Once crossed, recovery could take centuries, or may never fully happen. The oceans, ice, and climate system are deeply connected. What happens in one region affects another. There are no isolated changes in a global system. Everything is linked, from the deepest ocean trench to the highest glacier. And as these systems shift, life everywhere is forced to respond. Adaptation becomes survival. Survival becomes struggle. And struggle defines the present moment of our planet. Climate change is not only reshaping nature, it is reshaping human life as well. Because humans are part of every ecosystem on Earth, not separate from it, but deeply connected to it. Agriculture is one of the first systems to feel the pressure. Changing rainfall patterns disrupt crop cycles. Droughts reduce food production. Floods destroy farmland overnight. And soil quality is slowly degrading in many regions. This threatens global food security, especially in vulnerable areas. Water resources are also becoming unstable. Some regions face severe water shortages, while others deal with contamination from flooding. Rivers dry up earlier in the year, and glaciers that feed rivers are shrinking. Communities that depend on predictable water supplies are struggling. Human health is also affected. Heat waves are becoming more intense and more frequent, leading to increased heat-related illnesses. Air quality is worsening in many cities because higher temperatures increase pollution levels. Disease patterns are shifting as well. Some insects carrying diseases are expanding into new regions because warmer climates allow them to survive longer. Economic systems are also under pressure. Natural disasters cause massive financial losses each year. Infrastructure is damaged by storms and floods, and rebuilding becomes a constant cycle. Entire communities are being displaced. These are called climate migrants, people forced to leave their homes due to environmental change. Coastal villages are disappearing into rising seas, and dry regions are becoming unlivable. Ecosystems and human systems are now deeply intertwined. When nature suffers, humans suffer too. And when humans harm nature, the effects return. This is a feedback loop of cause and consequence. But there is another side to the story. Human innovation also has power. Renewable energy sources are expanding globally. Solar power is becoming more efficient. Wind energy is growing rapidly, and electric transportation is increasing. These changes reduce greenhouse gas emissions, reforestation projects are restoring damaged ecosystems, protected areas are helping wildlife recover, and global awareness is increasing. People are beginning to understand the urgency. Governments are creating climate policies, scientists are developing new solutions, and communities are taking local action. But progress is still uneven. Some regions move quickly, others lag behind. And time remains a critical factor, because ecosystems do not wait for policy. They respond to physical reality: temperature, carbon levels, habitat loss, and human behavior. The choices made today will shape tomorrow's planet, and that responsibility belongs to all of us. After exploring forests, oceans, ice, and human systems, one truth stands out clearly. Climate change is not a distant issue. It is a present reality, and its effects are already everywhere. But the story is not only about destruction, it is also about choice, because the future is still being written. Every ecosystem we study tells a warning, but also a possibility. A possibility of recovery, of balance, of renewal. Nature is resilient when given time. Forests can regrow, oceans can heal, a species can return, but only if the pressure is reduced. Only if change happens in time. The challenge is speed, because the planet is changing faster than many systems can adapt, and that creates urgency. Urgency for action, for awareness, for responsibility. Small actions multiplied globally create massive impact. Reducing emissions matters, protecting forests matters, conserving water matters, choosing sustainable energy matters, and changing consumption habits matters. But awareness is the first step, because people protect what they understand, and understanding begins with knowledge. The more we learn, the more we see connections between human activity and ecosystem health, between local actions and global consequences, between today and tomorrow, and between survival and collapse. But fear alone is not the answer. Action is, collaboration is, innovation is, and responsibility is shared. Governments have a role, scientists have a role, industries have a role, and individuals have a role too, because no single group can solve this alone. The planet operates as one system, and so must our response. Every decision matters more than it seems. Every action adds up. Every choice shapes the future. And the window to act is not infinite, but it is still open. What we do now will echo for generations, long after today becomes history. The question is not whether change is coming. The question is what kind of change we will create. A damaged world, or a recovering one, a divided response, or a united effort, because the power still exists in our hands, and the future of global ecosystems depends on how we use it.